Hey folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy September. It's a tornado Tony Pentagon.
Psychic Tom Paget with this. Crystal ball unveiled. Ready to go.
And we wish a happy heavenly birthday to the great Rocky Marciano. Unfortunately, it's also the day after the plane crash, which was kind of interesting to see. Luis Marciano, I follow on Facebook, and he posted like such different messages from one day to the next.
Yeah, I follow Lewis as well, and Rocky was flying home for a birthday something, and one of the sad things was Rocky, who had no problem giving any amount of money to his mother. Rocky, who sometimes would lose money because he'd forget where he hid it, decided to basically get the least expensive charter plane home with, I believe, an inexperienced pilot. And unfortunately, they hit some turbulent weather, and there was a single oak tree in that whole huge field, and they hit it head on.
Like it's time to go.
If I would have been alive at that time in that area, I would have cut it down.
Yeah, right. And ironically, like I said, it was Rocky's birthday today. It was 53 years ago yesterday that he passed away at 46 years old, and it's like in 2 weeks I turned 46, and I'm like, just makes you think just a little bit more. My friend Hank always talked about Rocky. Hank was born 2 months later. He would have been 90. He would have been 99 this coming November. But he would just tell me stories. What the man was really like. I like some of the guys that we had interviewed on the show. Guys like Nicky Sylvester and Dennis Maracy and Lou Duva. All those great guests that we've had over the years that had personal connections with Rocky.
Yeah.
And it was
a lot of actually
a minute ago.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it too. How many of those
time
people
right?
that we talked to are no longer with us? Like,
right? Yeah, friend, I know. Nicky Sylvester, she's gone. Lou Duva's gone.
Rocky's trainer's wife that I talked to, she's no longer with us. Yeah, it's crazy, but
But Rich, like you said, when it's your time, it's your time. And a year ago today, I joked when we were first getting on the call that I almost had a situation a year ago today, both myself and a friend of mine, in separate incidents. And I have this little used trait called common sense. I don't use it very often. I usually try to ignore it because it comes up with sensible ideas, and what fun is that? But I would go to the one gym on Tuesday nights, then I'd work out at home on Wednesday nights. And that Tuesday, I went up to a baseball game, and I said, well, maybe I'll just go to the gym on Wednesday. And I'm working at home, and, it's raining, and it's raining pretty steady. And I'm working at home, and I'm still up until about 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm going to leave at 4 o'clock and go to this gym. It's about 35 minutes away, but it was set up the way I like it. And at around 3 o'clock, I got a notice, and they said, the worst is yet to come. I said, that doesn't sound good. The worst is yet to come. And I said, maybe I should skip this one. Maybe I should skip this one. And thankfully I did for two reasons. One, I was in the house when the pump breached, and we had to rig a second pump to, keep from, a lot of my memorabilia in the basement from getting damaged and ruined. So that was one good positive. The second good positive was, if I would have went to the gym the exact way I always went to the gym, at the moment I would have been passing the one high school, my namesake was hitting that high school. And I don't know if I would have made it through. And my friend, the same thing, like she was at her salon that night, and they were going to hunker down and stay there, and one of her friend said, no, I'm leaving, I'll be fine. She was fine. And then my friend said, well, let me go see if I can help you because I have a higher rise vehicle. I have a Land Rover. I'll be fine. Once again, she was not fine. And the way she went, the streets were so dark and power was being out. And the local cricket breached. And it started, like, she went down a road that there was no road. And she started getting washed away. And it, you know, one thing that saved her life. Got, like, between two parking dividers, two parking blocks. And she was able to climb out of the top of her car, and there was a warehouse there. And just by chance, the one door of the warehouse was open, and she was able to get on a desk. And they had to get a crane to get her out.
Oh my God!
Both of us should have been gone a year ago today.
Wow.
And you know, we're both, you know, we both managed to survive through it. So you're right. When it's your time, it's your time.
Yeah. I've been stayed. My execution has been stayed a few times. I've come close a couple times, but thankfully it was not my time. I've always envisioned myself to be like that guy that recently died, probably like 4 or 5 months ago. Died. He was like 100 and something years old, 101 or 2, and he died after he wrote his last article. He was still writing. So I envision that to be myself. That's what keeps me going. By that time, I better be doing it full time. Right?
The one thing with me is, the one thing I always plan to do is, you know, I'm always, when you get, you know, you're looking in the paper and you see the obituaries and you see, like, these young people that have passed away, and you're like, oh my God, what happened to this young person? What happened to this child? Passed peacefully at the age of 106. You know, I'm like, shit, I'm going to put my baby photo in. First photo ever taken of me, that's what happened. Me, like, sitting there with a little rattle, all happy. Oh my God, what happened to this baby? He was 112.
There's a guy, Nick Swartzen, who's a comedian, right? And it's probably the funniest thing I've ever heard about a funeral. He talked about, he said, you know, obviously it was a joke, but he was like, at my funeral, there's going to be just a closed coffin, and then all of a sudden I'm going to come down on ropes from the ceiling, and there's going to be music playing. I'm going to start dancing. I was like, yeah.
Well, you know what? The other month, I'm over at my friend's house, and they got a sixth sense of humor like I do. They're very demented people. That's what a friend's mine. And they're sitting there one day, and we're talking about this. I'm like, you know, Tony, it's too bad we're going to pass before you. What the hell makes you think that? You know, well, they smoke, which, you know, whatever. But, I mean, I do a lot of dumb things. But they're like, because we had the perfect funeral planned for you. I'm like, geez, thanks. I mean, I thought it was bad enough my friend was writing my wedding speech when I'm still single. Now he's planning my funeral, which I guess is even worse. Well, I guess it's same-o. He goes, we're going to have a bunch of midgets carry your coffin. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Damn it. I wish I could be there. They're like, you stage your own death and just watch the funeral from afar. Or come in disguise. And then at the end of it, be like, oh, prank's on you.
Anyway, we have a ton of stuff to talk about, even though we don't have a ton on the schedule, and we didn't last week.
Well, the first thing we got to start with, I guess, is some sad news. The passing of one of the hardest punchers in boxing history today, Ernie Shavers.
Oh,
passed away at the age of 78.
I don't see that.
I just got the notice a short while ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. Too bad. But, yeah, we had not much going on last week, as we figured out when we started looking at the schedule. The big fight, the only fight really that was worth talking about last week, ended in a draw. Go figure. Jose Pedraza and Richard Comey. There was no UFC, no Bellator. There were some YouTube fights as well that made some stirring. I guess KSI, the guy that one of the Paul brothers beat, I don't even know who at this point, but the guy KSI knocked out 2 people in the same night. One of them had some boxing experience too, which was kind of interesting. I didn't see it, so I don't know how that went down, but it was work or what. Who knows? But anyway, Jose Pedraza and Richard Comey went to a split draw decision.
You know, as my one friend said it best, you got two. They're both on their back nine. As his exact quote, they're both on their back nine. They're both, headed towards the clubhouse, but they're not there yet. And they're both still capable fighters. I literally had just gotten back from a baseball game when Big Baby Anderson was getting in the ring. That fight went 2 rounds, which was a very impressive knockout by Big Baby. I only caught a little bit of the main event, then my long day finally caught up to me. But it was like the first round, you could see where Comey didn't have great legs under him. Like, he looked like his hands were fresher, but his legs weren't. And you could see, like, sometimes it was almost like his movement was labored. But like I said, these are two guys that are past their peak, but still serviceable. And, they'll likely still, get those gatekeeper fights or maybe a rogue title fight here and there. But, I don't expect them, either one of them to be the A side anymore. Could be, a decent rematch.
I'm just looking at box right now for our upcoming schedule. This could be a good riddle for you, Tony, the Rain Man of boxing. There's a Mayweather fighting this weekend. Where do you think he's fighting?
Well, is he fighting in Japan again?
No. Not the Mayweather you're thinking of. It's another Mayweather. Probably not related to the original Mayweather. Just guess a country. I'll give you that. It's a different country than the United States.
Country. Okay, let me think. Let me borrow Tom's crystal ball. So it's going to have to be like some obscure country where you wouldn't make me guess it. My 3 choices are going to be Zimbabwe.
No.
New
You're at
Guinea.
the opposite end of the alphabet.
Okay, so it's not so. Okay, so let me think. Okay, Antarctica, or is that a continent?
Yeah. Australia. It's Eaton's Hill
Oh, okay.
Hotel in Australia, and the guy's name is Abdoulaye Mayweather. He's ranked number 204 at super middleweight, and he's fighting Ali Elric, who's 7-1-1. Mayweather is undefeated, 6-0. He's trying to be like his namesake. We'll see. He's young, and that's the only fight we have on that card. But it's funny that you said Japan first, because right under that on my search for the 2-star fights this weekend and above, there's a fight card in Osaka, Japan, right under Mayweather's name.
Well, and I thought I saw something about Floyd Mayweather fighting again soon with another one of those bogus
Japan,
exhibitions.
Yeah, I think he is. I think it's for Raisin, actually, that Raisin Fight League, which has been on and off over the years, but every now and then they put something good together. So on Saturday, we have that fight in Australia, which is actually for the Australian super middleweight title. Did not mention that. But in Osaka, we have Rico Kano, who's 19-4-1, fighting Yuga Inoue, who's 13-2-1 for the flyweight WBO Asia Pacific title. And then Sho Ishida, number 3 in the world, fighting Alvin Medora, number 82. Sho Ishida is 30-3. Medora is 10-6. That's at bantamweight. Let's see. The Zone has a fight from Sonora, Mexico. And a lot of Mexicans on the fight card here, showing for this 2-star action. We've got 4 fights worth mentioning, according to BoxRec. 3 of them for titles. The one not for a title, got a lot of experience. Juan Francisco Estrada at super flyweight fighting Argy Cortez, who's 23-2-2. Estrada 42-3. 22-3. Super flyweight. Hector Flores Calixto, 20-0-4. Fighting Sivan Athi Nunshinga for the IBF World Light Flyweight title. He is 10-0. Calixto 20-0-4. So that's somebody's always got to go right there. And here's another experienced fight. Female. Erica Cruz Hernandez, 14-1, number 2 in the world at featherweight. Fighting Jelena Mirjanovic, who is 41-11-2. Doesn't have a ranking according to Boxrec, but that is the WBA World Featherweight title on the line there. And then Eduardo Hernandez, 32-1, fighting Jorge Montecuellar, 15-0-2. The WBC International Super Silver Featherweight. Okay. Fighting Bangkok. We're not going to do that. But another big one in the UK. Liam Smith, number 6 at Super Welterweight. Fighting Hassan Mwankinyo. He is 20-2, number 40 in the world. Dan Aziz, 16-0, fighting Shakan Pitters on the undercard. 17-1. That's for the British light heavyweight title there. And a female fight on this one for 2 titles. Natasha Jones, 11-2-1, fighting Patricia Bergolt, who is 15-0. Doesn't say the weight. It says it's for there it is right there. Title. WBC World Super Welterweight title. And WBO World Super Welterweight title on the line there. And what would a fight week be without at least one fight in Vegas? We've got the Westgate Hotel and Casino on here with a 2-star fight. Kevin Newman II, 13-3-1, fighting Christopher Pearson, who's 17-3. Title there, but good one. And then probably the biggest fight this week. I'm going to go with Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz. Which ease is going to win?
Ruiz and Ortiz.
Who's going to win with ease? Andy, 34-2. Luis, 33-2. On paper, it looks like Comey versus Pedraza. We're probably not going to see a draw in this one, though. Probably not.
That's an interesting matchup, because the one factor in there is I don't think anybody knows Ortiz's real age. What's he listed at, like 43 now? He may be more.
Yeah, I think 43.
He just played in the Little League World Series. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But that's one factor in there. We don't know his real age. He could be over 50. Now, I will say quickness, amazingly, you would go towards Andy Ruiz. He's got a quick hands for, a heavy-looking fighter, or a guy that looks like he's short and kind of pudgy. He's got deceptively quick hands.
Yep.
You have the Ortiz southpaw factor in there. So I don't think Ortiz is going to be able to do that long-distance boxing against Ruiz like Joshua did in the rematch, because he doesn't have that length, that reach to him. So the fight's going to be in close. I think what you're going to see here, it's going to be Luis Ortiz's movement and southpaw boxing ability against Ruiz's quicker hands. And, I mean, I got to say, a lot of it depends on the shape Ruiz comes in and if Luis Ortiz shows his age overnight. So, it's a hard fight to predict. Even for the guy that calls himself the brain man of boxing, it's a hard fight to predict because there's so many variables in there.
Yeah, a good point. I mean, I have to go with Ruiz slightly, but as you said, there's a lot of variables. But I would say Ortiz has to. I think Ruiz will be able to outwork him. I really do.
Yeah,
Ortiz,
exactly.
Ortiz gets lazy early on, and Ruiz has had, fairly decent chin. I mean, he knows how to get up. He's done that before. So, I think, but again, it's a tough one, but I got to go with Andy. And I think he knows this time. This is it. And I guess his weight. Now, I guess the weigh-in's tomorrow. I heard he's around 270, which I guess is down. Well, what was he against Joshua in that second fight? Was he close to 283? 283. Okay. I mean, I think he could do better.
Oh, I think he can do a lot better than that. I think he should be at most in the 250 range.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what he looks like at the weigh-in. But he's got to know this is it for you. You come in that way again. That's. I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And you know what? It's funny. It's like when it comes to weight on a fighter, especially a heavyweight, it's how they attain that weight. I remember a fighter a couple weeks ago, and it was a heavyweight fighter, and he was doing something, and it wasn't like you have to make weight. It wasn't like that whole Hasim Rahman big pumping. It was a heavyweight fight, and the guy was doing something. I'm like, wait a minute, when does a heavyweight have to make weight? And I'm like, this makes no sense. But I'll tell you a fighter, and I can vividly remember these three fights. Riddick Bowe. His first fight with Evander Holyfield, he came in tremendous shape, probably the best shape of his career, and he weighed 235 pounds. And fought a fast-paced with a better athlete, a highly conditioned fighter, and Riddick Bowe got stronger as that fight went on. Great performance. In the rematch, he came in, I think it was like maybe 12 pounds heavier. He was like maybe 246, 247, and he looked flabby. He looked slow. He looked ponderous. It's only a matter of 11 pounds, but it was a conditioned 235 against a flabby 246, which maybe means he lost muscle as well, and that extra weight was, even though it was only 11 pounds different, it may have been in closer of 20 pounds because it was muscle weighing more than fat. Then his second fight with Andrew Galatas. So the first fight, Galatas kicking his ass, gets disqualified for the low blows. They come and have a rematch. Bowe comes in again at 235, the same weight in his first fight with Holyfield, the weight that he was in the best shape of his career, but he looked emaciated. He looked like where his body was like weak and gaunt. His head looked big. He looked like he was like a cancer patient almost, for lack of a better term. And he looked weak in that fight where Galatas was really taking it to him. So Ruiz at 270 should be better than 283, especially if it's a
looking at
muscular,
Ortiz's record
in shape
over
270.
the last few years. If you go back to like 2017. 2016, he was fighting guys with less than 20 wins, beating them easily, and bam, runs into Deontay Wilder. He did decision Malik Scott, but he was knocking guys out with less than that. That was a big one. He got a win over Tony Thompson. That was his biggest win up to that point. It was 40-6. But the biggest name he fought up to then was Deontay Wilder, and then fought him twice, got KO'd twice, late in the fight, first time, a little bit earlier the second time.
And the thing is, he was winning both those fights.
And they were kind of a little bit of wars, but the only guy that even approached the record of Andy Ruiz, other than Deontay Wilder, since, let's say, 2016, 2015 even, was our Facebook buddy, Travis Kaufman. 32-2 was his record at the time. And he was down a few times, but,
And Travis fought him tough,
But, Andy Ruiz has had the title. He has reached the pinnacle has beaten the big guy. That's obviously it's a different animal than Ortiz fought. Wilder was really kind of an unknown quantity still at that point when he was winning those fights. But the big question was, would experience beat just raw talent and athletic ability? But yeah, showed that Wilder has the power to take people out of there. But the kind of people that get taken out by Ortiz himself, looking at his record, just don't match up to the kind of record of people that Andy Ruiz has beaten to get here. So I just don't see it. I mean, I could see a fluke knockout. Gets lucky. He has the punching power. Supposedly he's 43, tell me. That's what box fight tells me. 43.
Yeah.
He only took 6 rounds to take out Charles Martin in his last fight. He was 28-2.
And you know what? Didn't Martin have him down or hurt or
twice?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So could end early. Ruiz is so deceiving.
That has to, yeah.
He just looks like a little fat Mexican kid.
I think that's got to put into
Ortiz is Cuban, big, tall
I think
Cuban
that's got to
guy.
be.
It's going to be interesting. It's a very interesting class of styles. We might see it go 4 or 5, I'd say. But I like Ruiz for sure. Shall see. Okay, so Isaac Cruz versus Eduardo Ramirez in what may be the co-main event, I don't know. But each of them have 2 losses. That's for the WBC silver lightweight title. Cruz is number 7 in the world. 23-2-1 is his record. Eduardo Ramirez is 27-2. And Ruiz Alim at super bantamweight fighting Mike Plania, 26-1. This is all on the same Fox pay-per-view card. It's actually Sunday night from Los Angeles. 19-0. Plania, 26-1. This one's for the WBO NABO Super Bantamweight Championship. And then number 84, Joseph Spencer against Kevin Salgado Zambrano. Spencer 15-0, Salgado Zambrano 14-0-1. Another title, WBC Continental Americas. Jose Valenzuela, number 27 in the world, 12-0, fighting Edwin De Los Santos, who is 14-1 and number 48. Abner Mares. She says it's not ranked. He's 31-3-1, fighting Miguel Flores in a lightweight bout. Miguel is 25-4. Charles Martin, also on the card. At heavyweight, who we were just talking about. 28-3-1, fighting Devin Vargas, who's 22-7. And what would our trip through Boxrec be without the Jesus fight of the week? Jesus here is ranked number 219 in the world. Maybe he should speak to his father about that. Get to the changed. Jesus Silveira Carrillo. He is 10-7-2. Fighting ranked number 373 in the world at super lightweight, Matt Gaver, who is 3-6-2. So I think this is a fight Jesus can win. But Jesus barely made the 2-star ranking this week. So he just popped up without even looking for him. The only other fight they say that's worth mentioning on this card, Juan Antonio Lopez. He is 17-10 at super bantamweight, fighting 9-0-1 Anthony Garnica. That's it till next Thursday on the Zone. We got a couple title fights. Guys with hard to pronounce names. So we have most of our weekly themed fights. Big news in the Jake Paul front. This is an ironic choice, but one I understand. He's gone back to the well of ex-MMA fighters. rather than tangle with professional boxers. And there's an interesting story with his old opponent to be as well. Hasim Rahman has signed to fight Vitor Belfort. So he is entering into the circle of the freak show fights scene, basically. It's the crossover fights, I guess would be a better term. But, and he's probably going to fight on the undercard, I bet. They haven't pissed off Jake Paul that much that they would turn that away. But I don't know. We'll see. We're going to see, supposedly, though, Jake Paul now is going to fight Anderson Silva, which I think is a very bad move for Jake Paul. Because he sees one thing, the age. The age is the only thing that makes sense. That's why he's taking this fight. The age of Anderson Silva. He thinks Anderson Silva is too old to whip his ass. The one thing that makes me say, no way, Jake Paul, you bit off more than you can chew this time, is Anderson Silva trained with who? None other than Freddie Roach at the Wild Card Boxing Club. Almost through his entire career, I believe, in the UFC.
Wow.
For a long time. And he always had a dream of fighting Roy Jones Jr. He had that much confidence in his boxing game. So do not tell me that Jake Paul can't beat Anderson Silva.
Good point.
He has been in the boxing business too and beat credible opponents who have been boxers. Granted, the guy was kind of disgraced for missing weight and smoking too much weed, but he beat a credible boxing opponent, and then everybody he's faced recently, he's looked good against. So I don't think Jake Paul stands a chance unless there's special rules that benefit him, or if he's taking a lot of steroids. I don't know. I'm thinking he's just depending on having more power, and he's thinking that the head trauma that Anderson's been through and all that other stuff, he's going to have to get a knockout. Because if it's like more than a 6-round fight, I guarantee you Anderson's going to win. I mean, just on endurance. I don't think Jake Paul's got the cojones to keep up with him that long. But yeah, I think he's thinking he's being tactical with this pick for his next fight, but he's banking on the age being the biggest factor. I think it's going to be Anderson Silva's chance to put himself back on the map in the biggest way possible and show that maybe that's where he always should have been, was in a boxing ring. He could have been much better because his style alone, it's like Roy Jones. Why he actually wanted to fight Roy Jones. He slips punches like Roy had done in the prime of his career, and he knows how to throw the up jab with both hands. He can throw an up punch. It's just incredible with the head movement, the body movement, everything. The only unfortunate thing is we won't be able to see him kick Jake Paul in the face. This is a boxing match, but it's gonna be a better fight than the last few. I'm guaranteeing that. But Jake has definitely picked somebody. Maybe I don't know how Anderson is doing these days because I don't know if it's been like a year at least since he fought last, but something tells me this is a bad pick. This is a bad idea for Jake Paul. Unless he's looking forward to ending his foray into boxing. Or just accepting that first loss. I just don't see. I don't see him winning. Unless it's by miracle. So anyway, that's in the news. Then we got Vitor Belfort signing his fight to fight Hasim Rahman Jr. So yeah, we're gonna have the Jake Paul fight scene on the map for a while. But unfortunately, because of that big delay of big fights, because we had all the big fights the prior week, we had the YouTube fights made a lot of news. They're kind of all over social media. Missed a big one. So yeah, it's not going away, that phenomenon. I don't know if we're going to ever see the next big boxing champ come out of that scene. It's making some interesting fights happen. And that's one I definitely will pay to see. If I have to, but I'm probably going to find a way to see it for free. Anyway, so UFC Fight Night 209 is coming up from France, September 3rd here. Cyril Gane versus Tuivasa. And I'm going to need your crystal ball on this one, Tom, because, man, I don't know. Cyril is such a tactician, but nobody's pushed him. Nobody's gotten in his face consistently and had the power that Tuivasa has, so I just don't know. I mean, Cyril is the brain pick.
Tuivasa
tells me to pick
on a roll now. You know, he's fixed. Yeah, he's fixed a few of his technical gaps, and he's got all the confidence in the world. Again, he's just a hard guy to read. You know, I don't. Hard to get a handle on him mentally, but I think Ty will be the underdog, but he'll be a live underdog for sure.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Like you said, you know, Gane's not really been pushed.
So I don't know. I guess on paper I say Gane. He's only got the one loss. Tai Tuivasa has 3 of them, but he's on a roll. He's capable of that first round stunning knockout. I've had it pay off for me on FanDuel once or twice. I always bet on him, especially if he's cheap on the FanDuel lineups. But it's going to be a tough task for him. Derek Lewis was a tough task too. They called it a fluke a little bit because it was early stoppage, but I don't think that was going to go any different for Derek Lewis if he stood up from that elbow in the second round. But this guy's got quite the streak. Stefan Struve, Harry Hunsucker, Greg Hardy, Augusto Sakai, and Derek Lewis in his knockout streak. It's not lost since 2019 against Sergey Spivak. And Junior Dos Santos and Blagoy Ivanov, part of his 3-fight losing streak. Oh man. Fought Andrei Arlovsky to a decision before that. Shad Coulter got knocked out with a flying knee back in 2017. James McSweeney, UFC veteran there, from the AFC, Australian Fighting Championship, he fought him to the TKO back in 2016. So he's a tough honcho, Tai Tuivasa. He's got the knockout power. 13 of his 14 wins come by way of knockout. So, Cyril Gane is, like I said, a tactician. It's a main event. It's going to go 5 rounds. He's more than likely going to win by decision in most cases. And Tuivasa got held in check too. He's only been knocked out once himself. That was by Junior back in 2018. A more prime Junior. So. Is Cyril Gane at the Junior Dos Santos level from 2018? Can he really knock Tai Tuivasa out? I don't think so. It took him longer to knock Derek Lewis out, so if you want to do common opponent math, there you go. Tai Tuivasa wins the fight. But you could also say, what about him beating Junior Dos Santos in 2020? Maybe that was the lesser Junior Dos Santos 20 fights in. Anyway, this is a very interesting fight. I'm really torn. I'm gonna have to do multiple different lineups with each of them up there because I don't know. Even though Gane might not knock out Tuivasa if he wins, he's going to throw a shitload of strikes. So that scores points too on those. But yeah, that's a pretty compelling matchup for France. And I don't know, I think Gane is going to feel a little bit more at home there. Because he has more of that French boxing style. What do they call that sport? It's like a different type of boxing.
Sabat.
Sabat, yeah. I think Cyril has studied some of that. So,
I remember back in the mid '60s when I had a book on all the stuff I was studying, and this girl mispronounced it, Sabati, and everyone started making fun. Are you gonna play Sabati with me? You guys Sabati? Oh, look out, you know. Yeah, that memories. Bad ones.
Yeah, not related to the word sabbatical. It's much different. Okay, so co-main event is interesting too. Marvin Vettori has been up and down over his last few fights in his career. It's looked promising, ready to rise to the top at one point, but ran into a bunch of roadblocks. And he's fighting Robert Whittaker, who has basically run into his own roadblocks on, trying to get that title back. But it's a middleweight matchup. Both guys not quite loser leaves town level, but trying to get a win to get their careers back on track. So that'll be an interesting one too. I'm going to guess Whittaker takes that though, because just experience-wise with who he's faced, the talent level he's faced and gone the distance with, I think he's going to take it. Vettori just doesn't strike me as somebody who's going to beat that caliber of a guy.
Well, 1 second, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay. 10th fight of the night, we got Alessio Di Chirico, 13-6 at middleweight, fighting Roman Kopylov, 8-2. I'm going to have to look at their records to really get into that one. Lightweights, John McDessie under that, 18-7 for him. Naz Hakparast is his opponent, 13-5 at lightweight. And William Gomez, 10-2 at featherweight, fighting Jarno Aarons, who is 13-3 with 1 draw. Charles Jourdain, 13-5-1, fighting Nathaniel Wood, 18-5 featherweight. And this is Magomedov, but boy, this is not a first name I've heard before this. Abu Supian Magomedov, 24-4-1 at middleweight, fighting Dustin Stoltzfus, who is 14-4. Then you got Faraz Ziam, 12-4 at lightweight, fighting Michael Figlak, 8-0. 4th fight of the night, Nassourdine Imavov, 11-3 at middleweight, fighting Joaquin Buckley, who's 15-4. And Benoit St. Denis, 9-1 at lightweight, fighting Gabriel Miranda, 16-5. Khalid Taha, 13-4 at bantamweight, fighting Christian Quinones, who is 17-3 in the second fight of the night at bantamweight. And then Stephanie Egger in the first fight of the night, she's 7-3, fighting Aylin Perez, who's 7-1 at featherweight. So there's one female fight on the card. It's the leadoff bout. So as it stands, the majority of the fights that, picking FanDuel lineups that I've participated in, you have to have one female on the lineup, somebody, to win. They seem to, if they're the only ones especially, they seem to have that, I have to prove for all of womankind that we belong in this cage. So we'll see if that follows through this time, but that's the whole card. And it's from France, so I'm sure there's going to be a big time difference situation. I don't know whether they're going to have it in the middle of the day or what. I don't think it gives a time on shirt on. But yeah, check your local listings. We'll say that. Alright. Talked about Jake Paul. Oh, here's a story. Broke this week. One championship. just had their debut with Prime TV. I know we don't talk about the league a lot, but it was a big fight. Demetrius Johnson got some revenge against the guy who beat him. And actually, there was an uncalled foul in both fights, and he got the revenge on the uncalled foul this time too. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. But this story is about the parent company of One Championship is planning an initial public offering. So if you want to get into the combat sports genre of investing, you could invest in One Championship. You could buy into that, and you could WWE stock, right? That's still available, isn't it? Still traded? Tony, do you know that? Maybe Tom knows that. I think WWE is still traded.
No, don't know.
But anyway, of course, they're going to change their domicile now to the Cayman Islands instead of Singapore. Go figure. Nothing corrupt about that, is there? No. But yeah. In June, supposedly they were clocked at $1.4 billion, the organization. $1.4 billion. But, you know, like Dana White used to say, you know, something's worth what anybody will pay for it. Is anybody really going to pay $1.4 billion for one championship? I don't know. Anyway.
Well, it just doesn't have the exposure here.
Yeah.
That's the big limiting factor.
Yeah, even the fights that they show on Sherdog, there's really, you know, very few recognizable names. And they just have a different atmosphere.
And it is I think considered a place, you know, for guys to go to end their career. You know, kind of like the Cleveland Browns football team. They go there for a year, get overpaid, and it's a good gig. You know, you don't have to win. You just go out, don't get hurt, and have a big payday. You go there when your career's over.
Oh, Tom, way to transition to the NFL. I have to start making my other fan doing.
Well, I don't watch, but I will be watching. I'm going to break my 12-step program. I will be watching a week from Sunday. Hopefully that'll be the only game I'll watch all season. But you know what game I'm going to be watching?
Nice.
Come on. You don't know?
Browns versus who? Patriots?
Against who?
Patriots?
No. Well, see, it's all over. I don't follow the sport anymore, but the headlines are so much drama of the non-sport stuff. Well, Baker Mayfield was assured he was going to get one more year with the team because he took the worst franchise in NFL history, got him in the playoffs, but that's not good enough for these fans and the owners. So they traded they told Baker, everything's fine, you're healthy, you still got the job one more year, but they were talking to Deshaun Watson. And they wound up paying $230 million for Deshaun Watson. And now more filth came out, and so Deshaun Watson is suspended for 11 games.
Oh, it's 11 now?
And he didn't play last year. Right. See,
I didn't hear that. I heard 6.
I would have liked to see in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
You know, that would have been better, but it's 11. It's 11 games.
Wow.
So by the time Watson gets back, it's going to be freezing because it does get cold in Ohio in the winter. And he's never played good in the cold, so it may be a $230 million bust. And the problem is, the Browns are a pariah now because other owners, well, like Baltimore, they can't sign Lamar Jackson because he's just shoving a piece of paper at him, says $230 million, learn $30 million, we'll talk. So the other owners hate the Browns for what they've done, but they got rid of Baker Mayfield. So they traded him to the Carolina Panthers. So game number 1, the Browns are going to Carolina. So that will be a closest thing to a good
So
grudge
Mayfield
fight.
will be playing
we'll
against
see what
his old
happens.
team without their new quarterback.
Right. Right. And supposedly he made it saying, I'm going to F him up.
Yeah.
Well, now, he says he didn't say that, but that's good bulletin board material, so we'll see what happens. But
That's
he
awesome.
has every reason to hate that franchise, as I do. So I hope they get on a streak and go 0-17. Maybe they could do that for 2 years, because, see, they set the record. They were 1-15, I think, back in 2017, and they hired the same coach back and went, and the coach promised next year will be different. It was. They were 0-16, and they hired the coach back for the third season. How is this possible?
Right.
How? And I think that the owner knows that people around here are so out of their minds and bored that they'll eat any slop he puts on their plate. So I hope they start another losing streak. But my 2 cents worth. But as I said, that's going to 1. That's kind of the analogy that you'll get overpaid, and you're just kind of finishing out your career. So, I mean, Cleveland, since they've been back, no matter what they've done, of course, Mike Holmgren took end his career there. Last guy in, first guy to go home.
Yeah.
And they still have been the worst team in the NFL in history. No team had ever went 1-31 ever.
Yeah.
All right, enough of that.
Enough of the football talk. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's actually pretty much all the news stuff that I had. We already went over the stuff I was going to go off the article from. Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva and Rockman versus Vitor fight.
You know, Rich, I'll have to send you a link for a little 10-minute breakdown of Anderson Silva using Kung Fu. You got to see this. It's fascinating.
We
that link,
talked
yeah.
about it a couple times on the show about Ali getting some tips from his wife, who was doing karate, about using the boxing glove to chop people on the shoulders. I forget where I heard that first from, but I heard that somewhere. That he used that as a tactic in some of his fights. And, you know, the more you look back on some of them, like, he had those herky-jerky movements sometimes where he could probably get away with that. You know, just open the glove a little bit, hit him with the side of the hand. On the shoulders, you know, pretend like you're going for like a grab.
That's a little chop.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what Champ Thomas said. His boxing filler punches come in with you like a heel hand. It's illegal, but just make sure you spin away from the referee so they can't see it.
Right. Some crazy news about George Foreman came up. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there's a lawsuit in California now. Supposedly in the 1970s, 2 ladies said that when they were teenagers, he sexually assaulted them. So he's denied the allegations and says they're trying to extort millions of dollars each from me and my family.
Well,
Yeah, it's a long time.
awful funny they waited all that time.
Yeah. Supposedly he started grooming one of the victims by taking her out to ice cream. But anyway, we'll see how that turns out. 22 years from the date. That's what the statute of limitations was. From the date the plaintiff reaches the age of majority, 18. Wow, that's an interesting law. Never heard a law like that. Crazy. Anyway, anything else, guys? You want to pipe in before we call it a night? Exactly 10 o'clock.
Well, we'll have some good stuff coming up. September's going to be a wild month.
Yeah.
But we've had a little lull, and I think September, well, you know, Triple G, Canelo, I'm sure there'll be some other ones.
Definitely. All right. Till next week.
All right, guys. as I always say, enjoy the fights.
Yes, sir.